And there we go. So, and in this context of teamwork, so one of the questions that people have is like, well, what is basically just like Teams? I've got Teams. Why can't I use that as a form of communication? And what I'll kind of go into is that it's so much more than a Teams application, because it's so much more than just communicating. And one of the things that I have with Teams is that I need to search for something. I need to search for a conversation I had with somebody, and that is not always the most effective use of my time, and I can't always result in what the things that I need. And so I'll start off kind of going over the basics of what Teamwork is. So it's effectively a cloud solution that it runs in a cloud service, so that it doesn't necessarily run on premises. And keeping that in mind, a lot of what I'll show you here is that it doesn't necessarily require a data connection to your on-premises devices. And so one of the fears that I think people have, and that's a whole other conversation that we can have, and I think we as AVEVA really focus on keeping our customers secure, but that connection to your on-premises applications and your data to the cloud, we really want to maintain that security. But some people still have reluctance to do it, and I completely understand that. But one of the things about Teamwork is that it doesn't require that data connection. Yes, of course, you can connect your data to it, so you can have automatic scheduling and automatic data being brought into it. But a lot of the value of it doesn't necessarily require that, and I'll kind of go over that as well. So what is it? So it's effectively it's a way for people to be able to manage your teams. Kind of a great name there. But it's meant to facilitate communication, training, user knowledge of how to not necessarily just communicate with one another, but how to maintain your plant. And so I'll describe it in a way of how some people and a lot of people actually implement the product. And the first phase of it is effectively taking your users and adding them to the system. And so when you do that, then it turns into almost a social media aspect where people are on the application. They can look at their factory feed. Managers can manage your users and see where who's available, what shifts they're at, or what where they're located geographically, and things like that. But then people can start communicating with one another. And this could be something that's just as simple as, it's so-and-so's birthday, there's cake in the break room. They can have that open dialogue. But once you start doing this, you can start doing other things like, hey, I've got a problem with a particular device. And people can start communicating back and forth and say, look, okay, I see what you mean. I've had that before. Try doing this or whatever. And that's, I think, where people say, well, I could just use Teams for that. And absolutely, if all you're doing is communicating with one another about issues and things like that, Teams is a very much a viable option for that situation. But where Teamwork takes that next step is to be able to catalog and record these conversations. And then it's another step in that you can actually import and add your assets to the systems, because it's completely aware of all your assets. So we have that here. So you get your complete structure, and these can be renamed, but you have all the way down, your hierarchical level down to your equipment and actually the products that your equipment makes. And once your assets have now been added to the system, you can communicate based off of those assets. In this example here, we have a MASH 100 temperature exceeds limit. So this guy Alan posted this. He's got a problem with it. So we'll look at that and say, okay, he's got a problem. Well, let's see. Well, actually, on this one here, that's just a general communication, and people can go back and forth and figure out how to solve that problem. But on this one, he actually tagged this device, and this tagging can be something as simple as scanning a QR code that this has been that you've created for it. Because now that we've added this masher into this into Teamwork, all the content and all the associated documentation and things like that are added to it. But let's just say we added the product, or added the asset to Teamwork. Didn't do any other work beyond that. Didn't add any documentation. It's just added to it. But now when he's got a problem with it and he scanned that device, it's now associated with it, and that problem that he had is associated with this particular device. So if there's ever a problem with it in the future, or a masher that's like it, people can go to it and say, well, what is the history of it? What are some other issues that have been brought up? And so we can look at this from that historical standpoint. Other things can be so actually the one they do is solve the problem. You go through it and you say, okay, well, I got the problem. Maybe take a look at the temperature, or the temperature set point, or maybe the fire is too high or something like that. And then that's now solved. And now this issue that has been resolved is now linked to it forever, to this particular device. So if there's ever a problem in the future, people can go back and look and look at that. And as well, when it is still an open issue, users can go in and say, what are all the open issues that I'm associated with? Because I'm associated with wherever this master is. I can look at all the particular issues that are open in my plant, and managers can look from their standpoint, what are all the issues going on in the factory? Who can I assign them to? Because they can be reassigned or assigned to particular users. And they're responsible for maintaining this issue. And then once it's been resolved, it can be cataloged as resolved. And then going back, okay, so there's that issue, and it's now a history of this particular master. This is how it was resolved in the past. Now beyond this, now again, this is all from just adding users and the asset of the device. Now Alan can go in and say, or anybody else can go in and say, well, you know what? I want to be able to very easily resolve a problem like this in the future. So I'm going to take this application or take that problem that I've created that was found, and I'm going to create a troubleshoot for it. And this is now you can go in and say, okay, well, this is the problem. This isn't a really good example here, but very easily go in and say, okay, I've got this issue. It was temperature was too high, and this is how I solved it. I set it to this set point. So now, if anybody has a problem with it in the future, they can go and look at these troubleshooting capabilities. So now this is stuff that's being added by users. It's growing, it's evolving, it's becoming smarter by itself and by the user generated content. So now you want to take it a step further as a developer or a manager of the system. We want to put work instructions. So now with this master, we want to be able to have instructions that we've set up as a company of how to use this particular device within our facility. So we create these work instructions. So this is how to clean it out. And this can be based off of whatever. Maybe there's documentation that comes from the manufacturer, or you want to integrate it with your particular processes. But this can be added here. So very simple work instructions how to do that. And it follows a device within Teamwork, and it can be applied to other types of devices within this machine as well. So these are the particular work instructions. Let's say you want to take another step further and have training set up. So we have this whole complete training application built into the system where you take this content that you've brought in and set up training content as associated with it. So things like how to clean out a tank. And then once you do that, then you can say, well, these are all the instructions that I've got for how to do your job. As a manager, I can go in and assign these this training material and this training documentation for all of my workers underneath me, and I can see how they've done, whether they passed it, whether they're an expert of it. So if somebody has a problem with the clean out, they can look for the experts that are associated with the particular tank or whatever, and they can look and assign and at least communicate with these people dynamically and within the application. Or even they just want to look and see who the expert is and maybe talk to them in person and figure out how to solve a problem or how to do whatever. And then this training material can also be time-based. So if there's a regular training that needs to be done, maybe for regulatory compliance or whatever, you can reassign the time scale or the time frame that these users have to be attend this training. So there's that. Back on the devices themselves. We'll go in and say, look at this the structure that we've got. Maybe look at our equipment. Let's see here. There we are. So other things like documentation that's based on this particular device, but there's other things that are it's just called documentation that users can have that's not necessarily generated internally, but maybe from the manufacturer. User's manual, warranty information, who to contact from the vendor side, all these other things that can be brought in as well to facilitate implementing your applications or working within your factory. Let's see here. Some of the things you can do, and in terms of the interfaces, this is a Windows-based. I'm just on a browser. Other things like iPads, because obviously if you're going to be out in the field, you're going to want to implement it. People are mobile; they want to be able to access their systems and do it that way. And this is just it running on an iPad over here, and it's a very similar interface. It's the similar structure. Here's an example. Let's see. Samuel Brown has got a problem. He goes in, let's see, it's another, where did I see that?
Hey, Brian, just want to do a quick time check here.
Oh, okay.
About a minute or two left.
Minute or two. Okay, great. There we are. So he's got a problem with his roaster. Beans are coming out burned. Let's see. Well, that right there. The beans are coming out burned. How was it solved? Actually, this is coming up here. Oops. Oh, there it is. So this is the discussion that was involved. Okay, well, someone in this example, it's just so Samuel Brown doing it, but the temperature was lowered. Someone said, "Hey, should I lower that temperature?" And then you're good to go. And then this is how you solve the problem. And then you could take that out, this information, and then make that a troubleshoot based off of that. So one of the things about Teamwork is that this is designed to be able to work with a lot of the products within the AVEVA product line, like InTouch, System Platform, etc. There's even a widget that is contextually aware of the systems that you've got. So if you're within let's say OMI, you're looking at Master 100. The widget can then fly in and is contextually aware that you're on Master 100 and bring all the contact up to that particular device. So designed to work with operations control, and we're going to extend that capabilities even further. So if you have any questions, I'd love to hear them. And otherwise, thank you for your time.